Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Whole Special channel and another episode of Feed the Monster. What's this? Yum, yum, give me some. There's a guy I know who was an independent contractor as such, where he'd go around working on machine tools, and he had to quit about a year ago. He helped me work on the lathe here in the shop just before he had to actually give up everything. Had a herniated disc, and so he had to go in for an operation and all that good jazz. So anyway, I've been buying up some of his inventory, you know, screws, nuts, bolts, all that kind of jazz. And he also offered me a magchuck here a while back, and I've been after him for a while. He's finally reluctantly let it go for a decent price. I mean, a little below market value, but still decent price. I can't complain. He can't complain. We're both happy, and so it worked out for both of us. Now, some of you may subscribe to Steve Summers' channel, where he's been having issues with his magchucks on his grinders. And this one I bought specifically for the Bridgeport here because it's a permanent magnet. And so one of the things I noticed right off the get-go when I just mounted it up here today, it's just not trying to, you know, getting it to engage is really tough. It just didn't want to move, and so I decided, well, let's open it up, see what's going on in there, and if nothing else, maybe lube it up a little bit. My guess is it's probably dry, and so I opened it up, and sure enough, the permanent magnet slides back and forth, is a little dry, and then there was also a little bit of corrosion underneath between the top plate and the magnet itself. And so I'm going to go ahead and get out my Sandflex block and polish this up a little bit, put a little Wiener slider on it so that it slides back and forth. But anyway, I wanted to show you the internal workings of one of these because, quite frankly, I've never seen one either. The magchuck I have on the grinder is an electromagnet, kind of like what Steve Summers has on his new Brown & Sharp. And I left a comment on his. These things work. The electromagnetic magchucks, they work on DC. So when you plug them into wall power at 110 volts, of course, they're not going to work because the polarity is reversing all the time. So that's one of the reasons he was having troubles with his, is there was something else going on there electrically. And but he also has a permanent magnet magchuck on his other grinder, and it gave up the ghost. And so one of the things, if he's, you know, if he's not gotten around to it yet, Steve, I hope you're watching this. If you do, let me know and maybe put a comment down below in the comment section, you know, if this is helping you any or not. These things are constructed quite interestingly, and I'll bring the camera around here and show you guys the construction of these things. Quite fascinating, actually. I never knew how they were put together until I opened this one up today, and so I haven't seen anybody else really opening one of these up. I'm sure there's videos out there in YouTube land and otherwhere, in Rumble and BitChute maybe, where guys have opened these things up and kind of give us a peek inside. Now, this one here is out of German manufacturer, so it's going to vary slightly from the Chinese junk that folks are used to over in the States and in England. So bear in mind that those aren't usually, this one is adjustable. Those cheap Chinese pieces of junk, they're usually not adjustable to where you can fine tune the intensity of the strength of the magnet. So let me bring the camera around here and show you guys some of the cool stuff about this magnet, this magchuck. So here we've got the top plate. I kind of had to bolt it down because getting the magnet off was quite a chore, and I didn't want to break something. Now, you probably won't be able to see this in the camera, but there's 2 pins that go the entire length of the thing here, and I'm guessing they're probably screws or bolts or something, but they're not intended to be taken apart. And when you run your hand over there, you can feel the joint between the brass. Now there's a brass element in here, or bronze, and then steel. And so inversely on the magnet, there's a magnet portion of it, and then probably aluminum or steel or something like that amplifies the magnetic force that goes to this. So I should probably put this on the grinder and just take a skosh off of it to smooth it up nice, so that this thing operates smoothly, because the seams in between. Back here it's pretty smooth, although there is some corrosion, but up here I can really feel those joints in between there, and I'm thinking that's part of the problem that I'm having with the thing not engaging correctly. So let's take a look at the rest of it. Here we have this is an aluminum frame, so it's non-magnetic, and that keeps the magnet from banging around in there. And here we have the engagement lever, and there's a little horseshoe clip that goes on there against the wall. This can't rotate once the lid's been put on, and so when you rotate this trapezoidal thread here just keeps it nice in a line and runs it back and forth without too much problem. And then way over here is the bottom. Of course, that's not really all that interesting. Now here's the heart of the thing, and you really got to watch out. I don't dare get this thing anywhere close to any steel, otherwise it'll probably break my hand. But here you have, in between here, magnets. You can kind of see them on the bottom. There's like an epoxy covering on it to minimize or maintain a distance between the magnet and the bottom, so that it doesn't come in contact and stick to something. And of course, here's your little the threaded gizmo that engages it, that mechanism. This is out of brass, so it's not magnetic. And then you have here a set of screws that hold this whole thing together as well. And then on the frame, let me put this down so it doesn't fall down. On the frame, you have a little set screw back here, and you can adjust the strength of the magnet with this little screw right here. So this is quite a nifty little setup. So I'm pretty impressed with this. This, of course, is the bottom, so I want to when you take these apart, you want to maintain the same order of operations as going back together. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and grind this up a little bit on the surface grinder and get it nice and smooth on one side, and then probably just take a skosh off the top and dress it up as well. I mean, it's not bad. I could probably put it together and make it work. I do see some scoring here, which kind of gives me rise to concern. I think that's part of the problem. There must have been some chips or something in there that kind of scored this a little bit and cause it to hang up and not work right. So anyway, let me get this all squared up here, and then we'll go on with the video. So here we got the magnet put back on. I'm going to put a little more grease along the edges here in case this thing starts to kind of drift inside the casing here. Let's just put it on the inside. I put a little thin coat of grease on the edges here so that when this thing is in service, it repels, if you're using coolant or something like that in conjunction with it, that it doesn't get all wet inside and then corrode like it did before. And so this is just a preventative measure. So we're going to stick this back on here like so. Line up the holes with some screws. Now we're going to insert the handle. Give it another good coating of grease. You want these things to have plenty of Wienerschleider on them so that they don't seize up, and you don't get into these very often, so in order to stave off any potential disasters, you definitely want to keep them lubed up as good as you can. So then you turn that in there till you run it in, till it hits home. Then we got our little horseshoe clip here, and it goes in behind there. There's a little groove in the shaft. And so now that it's on there, it can't fall anywhere. It can't rotate because it's a little wider than, it's just the right width, has the height of the barrier here. So we're going to put a little grease on here. Again, this is just to kind of waterproof it a little bit. We're not really trying to seal it off, because if you ever have to get back in here, the last thing you want to be doing is fighting silicone and all that good jazz, trying to get it off of there. That winds up being a real fun job. And so we're just going to put a little grease on there to repel any water, and you can put some on the bottom. Now this magnet won't fall as long as the top is on there. Of course, if it falls on the floor and it smacks, it should bounce right back up, but it probably won't do that unless, of course, I drop it or some stupid thing like that. So now we're going to take out our screws here, put on the bottom plate. I wound up grinding that a little bit too, because it was looking pretty bad. There's some pitting in the inside. And so this was the bottom side here. Where's the Allen key? Way over here. Okay. So then we're just going to run these in until they seat, and then go around and torque them down. So now we're going to torque these things down a little bit. Anyway, now we can take off the remainder of the grease and throw this thing back on the surface grinder and grind this top plate so that it's nice and parallel. I did the base plate as well because it was looking pretty bad. Not only the top plate inside, because it was corroded, pitted, and then also the ribs were kind of worn, and so it needed to be reconditioned. And so now we've got it reconditioned. But there we have it. Well, everybody, there we got the mag plate back together, the magchuck, I should say, the permanent magchuck. And so, like I said, now it's just a matter of putting it back on the grinder, getting the top leveled up and playing down nice so that it's nice and parallel. The bottom plate is all back into spec. But that's essentially the inside workings of these things. Now, some of them are probably going to utilize a cam or, you know, because they got the lever on the front of the chuck. And so there's going to be, some variations in the internal mechanisms of the chuck itself. So it's just something you're kind of going to have to watch for if you guys are going to get into one of these. Now, it does pay to open these up once in a while, refresh the grease so that the function is maintained of these things. Because when I opened this up, I was a little surprised, to be honest with you, that it was in such poor condition. I would have thought it would have been in a little better shape. The ribs of the top plate were kind of poking through, and so the magnet was hanging up on those, mainly just for lack of lubrication. So now that that's all taken care of, this thing should give quite a few years of service yet. That's about all I can think of for right now. If you guys have any thoughts, comments, critiques, suggestions, and what have you, by all means put them in the comment section below. Helps with the YouTube algorithms, and those in Rumble probably too. So anyway, thanks for stopping by, thanks for watching, and hope to see you guys all again soon in the next one.